Hey, quick question. How do you ram without green in Commander? Did you say mana rocks? Sure, that's one way. As a Dimir player for many years, I've been hunting for ways to beat green ram. And today, I'm going to tell you my secret tap. Let's be honest, green gets all the easy mode ram spells. Cultivate, Kodama's Witch, Open the Way. They play one card and suddenly they're swimming in mana. Also, we are not allowed to run mass land destruction in casual commander, but green players can easily destroy all our mana rocks with cards like Band of Progress and Faith from History. When we are not in green, we have to work harder. Every artifact, every creature, every spell has to pull double duty. Over the years, I've tested a tons of cards across different colors, always looking for ways to keep up with or even pressure green decks. These aren't explosive, game-ending cards, but they add up fast and completely change how your mid-game feels. Quick disclaimer before we jump in, I mostly play casual commander, usually around bracket 2 to 3, nothing hyper-optimized or combo-heavy, and games typically last 8 turns or more. And even though I'm using Dimir as the example today, most of these cards work in almost any deck. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. The first category is Equipment Ram. When I'm not in green, the first category of cards I always look at is Equipment. Equipment is one of my favorite forms of non-green Ram because it turns something you already want to do, attack, into mana and land drops. Especially in blue, I'm already playing cheap evasive creatures like Fairy Mastermind and Ledger Shredder. They are great early attackers, they connect easily, and they are perfect at carrying equipment and generating value. Sword of the Animus is the cleanest example. 2 mana to cast, 2 to equip. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, you search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. It doesn't require the creature to deal combat damage, just attack. If the creature survives, you can do it again next turn. It's simple, reliable, and exactly what non-green decks want. Then we have got the Sword of X and Y cycle. A lot of people think these are just for Voltron decks, but that's not really true. Sword of Fortune Frontier is incredible. Protection from red and green matters a lot, and when you connect, you exile the top 2 cards of your library and you can play an additional land this turn. That's RAM and card advantage. Ideally, you want to hit 2 lands from exile, and then you can just keep whatever interaction or removal in your hand. Dimir loves this because it keeps your hand full the whole time while doubling your land drops. Sword of Heart and Home is another great equipment. It gives you blank and land ram. You grab a basic, you reuse ETB triggers, and suddenly your Solemn Simulacrum is doing overtime. And then Sword of Feast and Famine is the scary one. Everyone knows how powerful it is, so it usually eats removal fast. But if you time it correctly, you only need it to trigger once. Untapping all your lands basically double your mana. It puts you way ahead and lets you hold up interaction on everyone else's turn. If you think Sword of Feast and Famine a little bit too spicy, let me recommend my personal favorite, Dowsing Dagger. This equipment is wildly underrated. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage, it transforms into Lost Vow, a non-legendary land that taps for 3 mana. There are very few lands in Magic that do it with no conditions, and if you are feeling extra spicy, cards like Vesuver or Thespian Stage can copy Lost Vow and push your mana even further. Next, the Regalia from Final Fantasy is another good option here. Technically, it's not an equipment, but since you need a creature to crew it, it plays very similarly. When it attacks, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit a land and put it onto the battlefield tab. It doesn't say basic, so you can hit your bounce land, Urbot, Temple of the Force God, or any utility land you need. The Regalia also has haste, so you can play it and attack on the same turn. If you are unsure about this one, go check out Commander at Home episode 78. Brian Kibler literally played the Regalia as his commander, and it's wild to see how many extra land he gets. Now we know equipment is great, but sometimes you don't really want to rely on combat. That's where my next category comes in. Creatures that do double duty. Solemn Simulacrum is still good in 2025. It ramps on the way in, draws a card on the way out, and works perfectly with Blink, Reanimation, or Sacrifice strategy. It does everything you want. If you are playing Solemn Simulacrum, you should also look at Scampering Surveyor. When it enters, you search for a basic land or a cave and put it onto the battlefield tab. Most of the time, you want to use it to grab Ursa's cave, which then tilt her for any land from your library. That means Urbot and Couple Corvus if you are in black, or utility lands like Pit of Offerings for Graveyard Hate, Sunken Palace to copy your spell or activate ability, or Secret Tunnel to make your creatures unblockable. And then there's Embercool's Messenger. It's one of the smallest Eldrazi ever printed, but it pulls a lot of weight than it looks like. For 2 mana, you get a 2/1 fire, and whenever you draw your second card each turn, you create an Eldrazi spawn that can sacrifice for a colorless mana. In Dimir, you are already drawing cards anyway. This basically turns your card draw into stored mana that you can cash in later for your big spell. And in the worst case scenario, those spawn tokens can always block and buy you some time. Anti-Castle Wettish is another Eldrazi from Edge of Eternities. When it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card and put a permanent from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, as long as it costs less than or equal to the number of lands you control. Early in the game, you can warp it for just 4 mana to drop a land or value permanent. Later, you can do it again for 6 mana. And in the late game, it's a great way to sneak out your biggest permanent or heavy hitter without spending extra mana. Now that we are done with creatures, let's move on to the next category. Double Face Value Wham. This card gives you value early, then quietly become mana sources as the game goes along, and no one wants to waste removal on them. Thematic's Compass is easily my favorite in this category. Early on, it helps you hit your land drop, which is very important for a non-green deck. Once you control 7 or more lands, it flips into Spire of Oaskar, basically a maze of it that can also tap for mana. In my experience, it's actually the best to cast this and flip it in the same turn. And because usually I want a lower creature count in Dimir, that maze effect has saved me more time than I can count. And next, we have Search for a Canter. At the beginning of your upkeep, Surveil 1. Then, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform it into a Canter the Sunken Ruin. This is card selection early and filling up your graveyard at the same time. It's perfect for Dimir control, graveyard decks, or decks that play Treasure Crew and Dig Through Time. Once it flips, it gives you more card advantage and make extra mana every turn. And then we have Treasure Map and Treasure Cove. This one is really underrated. As Dimir players, we are already holding up mana, so it's easy to just spend 1 mana to scry and smooth out our early draws. And once it flips, we are not just getting free treasure tokens, we are also getting a land that makes mana and draws cards. That's exactly the kind of value we want. Primal Amulet is a card that really shines in Dimir. It gives you cost reduction, and in Dimir, casting 4 instant or sorceries is not really a problem. Once it flips into Primal Wellspring, you get a land that copies your spell, that extra mana and extra value, and when you pair it with something like Exsanguinate or Torments of Hellfire, you can easily close out the game. And then we have Everfolding Well. It costs 3 mana, and when it enters, you mill 2 cards and draw 2 cards. 3 mana to draw 2 is already solid, and filling your graveyard at the same time is a nice bonus. Later on, it turns into the Myriad Pools, a land that taps for blue mana, and honestly, getting 8 permanents in your graveyard is pretty easy if you are playing any kind of Reanimator or a graveyard-focused deck. And I will be real, I don't even care much about the second ability here, but if you have a clever way to use it, please let me know in the comments. And the next one is for our red players, Dowsing Device. For just 2 mana, whenever this or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you give a creature +1/+0 and haste. It's a good early game haste enabler that plays nicely with artifacts. Once you control 4 or more artifacts, it flips into a land that taps for red mana. On top of that, you can play 2 and a red to give a creature haste and +X/+0, where X is the number of artifacts you control. With how many red cards naturally make treasure tokens, flipping this is surprisingly easy, and the payoff is great. There are a lot more cards I want to talk about, but I just couldn't fit everything into one video. The key idea here is simple. Non-green RAM isn't about copying green, it's about stacking small advantage whenever you can. Equipment that turns attack into mana, creature that RAM and generate value, and utility cards that eventually become mana sources. You won't out-RAM green in one turn, but over the course of the game, you will start falling behind, and that's what actually matters in casual Commander. If you have got your favorite long green RAM spell, please let me know in the comment. I'm always looking for new ideas, and if this video was helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe for more Commander tech. Alright, that's it for today. I will see you guys next time.